Hello there, welcome back. This is Heidi from My Reading Life, and I'm here today to start my mid-month book bash vlog. It is that time of the year, or I should say that time of the month, where we try to read as much as we can for a whole weekend, including the Friday before and the Monday after the weekend. So mid-month book bash is a reading event that was first organized by Doris over at Aldi Books, and it takes place on the second weekend of the month. And we try to read as much as we can from Friday through Monday because, the 2 days of the weekend isn't long enough. We need a little bit of extra time. So I just thought I would check in. It is Friday, January the 12th. Yep, Friday, January 12th. And I have finished work for today. It got done a little bit early, as you can tell, because it's still daylight outside. It is, I live in Maine, as you know, so this time of year it gets dark pretty early, and anytime that I can be done work and it's still daylight out, I am very excited. So I have to go get my hair cut here pretty quickly, and then don't have any plans for tonight, but tomorrow is my granddaughter's first birthday party. And so that's pretty exciting. And we also have another storm event forecast for the weekend. So I'm not sure how that's going to impact what I'm doing, but I will be documenting it in my vlog. So let's talk about the books that I'm currently reading. I am currently reading 6 books because I have no self-control and I started a whole bunch of books when the new year started. So this is one of them. This is The World Turned Upside Down, A History of the Chinese Cultural Revolution by Jisheng. And this is translated from the Chinese by Stacy Mosier and Guao Jian. That's probably incorrectly pronounced, and I apologize for that. So this is an enormous nonfiction book all about the Cultural Revolution. I am buddy reading this with Joe Smith, and we chose to read this because we read Do Not Say We Have Nothing last year, and that novel led us to want to learn more about the Cultural Revolution, so we chose this one to read. I am currently on page 94, so through chapter 5, and I will be reading the next 3 chapters in this book this weekend for that buddy read. A book that I picked up because I read an essay from this author, Jeff Goodell, in my Best American Science and Nature Writing collection from 2022. I really enjoyed that, and so I knew I had this book on my TBR, so I had to go and pick that one up and read it. It is The Water Will Come, Rising Seas, Sinking Cities, and the Remaking of the Civilized World. Now, this book was first published in 2017, so it is, crazily enough, it is a little bit outdated in terms of the predictions of sea level rise, and some of the information about climate change has already evolved since this book was published. But it is really fascinating look at different locations around the globe and how rising sea level and increasing numbers of really extreme storms are impacting those places. So the first chapter is about Miami. There's a chapter in here about Norfolk, Virginia, which is the home to the largest U.S. naval base in the world. There's chapters about places like the Marshall Islands and other islands in the South Pacific. There's a chapter in here about Lagos. So, there's all kinds of chapter in here about New York City. Really, really interesting information, like terrifying information. And as I live in a place that has experienced in the last month at least 3 major coastal storms that have caused really severe flooding and coastal damage, and we are not considered a place that is, at high risk from sea level rise just because of the way the coastline of Maine is has developed. It's still, you can see the impacts of what's to come with sea level rise and climate change. And this book is really well written and super interesting, and like so much good information and a lot in here to really make you think. I have about 75 pages left to go in this one, and so I am planning to finish this one this weekend. I am reading from my TBR my old TBR that I'm trying to work through this year. This is the first one I've picked up. This was from my 2019 purchases that was still left here. And I am reading this with Britta Bowler. This is To the Bright Edge of the World by Eowyn Ivey. This is an epistolary novel, historical fiction, written in the late, 1895 time period, about a army lieutenant who is tasked with exploring the Wolverine River in Alaska. He is stationed at an army base in Washington State, and he leaves his wife, Sophie, at that base and travels up to Alaska. And so he is on this expedition. He's writing letters back to Sophie at the army base. She's writing letters to him, and both of them are keeping their own independent journals of the time that they're apart. Interspersed with that information are newspaper articles, letters from other people, reports, things like that. And it's giving the bigger picture of what's happening in the historical context in this time period, but also what's happening between these two characters. Really interesting look at, how European colonists exploring land that was inhabited by indigenous peoples and how that interaction happened. There's stuff in here that's sort of based on indigenous legend and mythology. So there's a little bit of potentially magical realism, supernaturally kind of stuff in here. But it's not overwhelming because I don't really like that kind of thing. So I'm glad that it's not the main thrust. There's also these very interesting historical illustrations left in here. You can see newspaper articles, photographs. It's just really, really well done in terms of how it's put together, and I'm very much enjoying this story. So I am currently on page 176. I have read the first 2 parts, and I'll be reading part 3 for the next check-in with Britta. Now, the other books that I'm currently reading, I am currently reading on ebook. So I am reading a book with Patrice and Rachel called The Woman They Could Not Silence, and that is nonfiction about a woman who was involuntarily committed to an insane asylum in the mid-1800s, and her experiences fighting back and trying to regain her freedom. It's by Kate Moore, and it's absolutely fabulous. It is so good. I'm really loving that book. I am also reading a romance novel with Katie and Doris, and that one is called, I cannot remember the name of it, so I will put the picture up there. Is Yours Truly, the Duke, is what it's called. And this one is a Regency romance, I believe, or historical romance. Takes place in England, where a duke and a young woman enter into a marriage of convenience. So she can protect her nieces and nephews that she is fostering, and he, because he can't get his grandmother's inheritance otherwise. So I'm just a little ways into that one, and really liking it for the bit of relief that it provides to some of the heavier books that I'm reading at the same time. And then last but not least, I've started a buddy read with Sean of Apparitions by Adam Pottle. And that is a horror novel. It is a horror novel about a deaf character who was abused by his family, his father mainly, and kept in, I'm not going to go into details because I'm not sure what I can say about that. So I'm just going to say it's about a deaf character who was kept in captivity by his father and suffered torment and abuse, and what happens after he escapes that situation and decides to seek his revenge. And so we've only read the first 60 or so pages of that book. It's written in a very literary style, and it is not at all straightforward, and it is intriguing, very, very intriguing. So those are the books that are currently on the go for me, and I will be checking in with you as I make progress. Here I am. I'm back. It's Sunday, so it's been a couple of days, but I have done some reading and I want to share that with you. I've completed 2 books off that list of books that I was currently reading. So yay me. The first one that I completed was this romance novel that I read on my Kindle, Yours Truly, The Duke by Amelia Gray. This is a Regency romance, and it follows a couple who have entered into a marriage of convenience. Frederica and Wyatt, he's a duke. She's just a lady who has had to take over care of her 2 nieces and nephew, and she needs to get married in order to be able to keep them, and he needs to get married in order to be able to keep his inheritance from his grandmother. And so plot ensues. Of course, they are supposed to lead separate lives, but due to circumstances, they get thrown together, the 2 of them and the children, and they have to basically build a family together. It is a sweet novel. It isn't, the sexual content is pretty minimal, so that's nice. They're both very nice people. They talk things out and speak their words and all that. So that's very nice. But I would just say that overall, this was a pretty average romance for me because the dialogue does not sparkle. It isn't humorous. It's mostly sweet. And that's just not my flavor of romance. So while I thought that the problems that they faced together were realistic and talked about in a realistic manner, it just didn't, A, the plot didn't move quickly enough. B, there was repetition and unnecessary description. And C, I just didn't love the dialogue. And there weren't enough secondary characters. I really enjoy a friend group or some really fun servant characters, and there just wasn't much of that in this book. So yeah, just an average romance for me. And then this morning when I couldn't sleep at 4 a.m., I finished The Water Will Come, Rising Seas, Sinking Cities, and the Remaking of the Civilized World by Jeff Goodell. This is nonfiction, and it's about sea level rise and climate change, and it is super interesting and filled with a lot of information that is very specific to different areas of the world and what is going to happen. So Goodell this book came out in 2017, so the science is a little bit dated in terms of the amount of sea level rise we expect to have in the coming decades. But a lot of it is spot on still. And what's interesting about this, I think, is the way human infrastructure has been built and how we still have not really come to terms with what's going to have to happen to deal with sea level rise and climate change in coastal areas, and particularly in the United States. Although this book does talk about places around the world, there's a chapter, this opens up with information on Miami and sort of ends with Miami. So it's bookended by Miami, which is a city that was built in absolutely a place where you should not build a city. Coastal Florida on swampland, had to drain the Everglades in order to build it. It's just not going to survive sea level rise, at least not in its current formation. But this book also talks about the Netherlands, it talks about Denmark, it talks about Venice, Marshall Islands, other islands in the South Pacific, other cities in the US like New York City, Norfolk, Virginia, so lots of cities and different ways that they are or are not talking about adaptation for climate change and sea level rise. And that part was really fascinating. Some of the engineering that's been discussed was really fascinating. Some of the ways that people continue to bury their heads in the sand about what's happening in our world with climate is really frustrating and has not changed. How politics plays into this but I think that part was really interesting because it really shows how particularly local politicians, at the mayor level or at the municipal level, how politicians have to weigh not completely panicking everyone that lives in their city, but also have to plan for the future. So you can't be these dire things are going to happen and scare everybody, but at the same time you have to plan for those dire things happening and you have to build for those things, which means maybe raising taxes, and people don't want their taxes to go up. So it's this constant juggling act of keeping the population satisfied, but also responding to the changes that you know are happening and are still to come. So like that part was really interesting as well. Goodell is an excellent writer. He really lays it out. He has been a journalist for a long time. I believe he wrote for Rolling Stone, so he's a popular journalist. And his writing style is very accessible and really interesting and engaging. So absolutely love this. I will be picking up more by this author. I think he does a really excellent job with this type of writing. So yeah, be reading more by him. I have also made progress in all of my other books except one. I will be picking that one up, the horror novel, Apparitions by Adam Pottle. I'll be picking that one up next to read. It is, like I said, it is Sunday. And so I don't have really anything big planned. There's football coming on, of course, and there's housework, but we'll be interspersing that stuff with more reading. So I will check in when I have more to report. In honor of Sean and Bert at Storytime, I thought we'd do a little grocery haul this morning. It's Monday morning, and I love the grocery hauls on other people's channels, but I've never done one. So I've been to the grocery this morning, and yeah, I got some stuff. Let's see what I got. I got a bag of basmati rice. I've got some plain yogurt, baking powder, low sodium soy sauce, French dressing, Crisco oil. Got a good deal on this one, had a coupon. This whole grocery haul was started because I happened to look at my grocery store app this morning and realized that I could get $12 off a $60 purchase. And there were a bunch of coupons that I could use, so that's why I went. I also got my grandson some juice boxes. I've picked up, they were on sale and I had a coupon, so I got 2 baking mixes, gluten-free. My daughter-in-law is gluten-free, and this is the King Arthur brownie mix, and I also got the King Arthur muffin mix. So we're gonna try those out. I've never tried that particular brand before. We're gonna try it. This is my preferred bread. If I'm just getting store-bought bread, I like the Arnold oat nut, and it's, you know, double wrapped so it stays fresh longer. We're planning on having cheeseburgers tomorrow night for supper, so I've got some cheeseburger buns. Watching football tonight, so I've got some tortilla chips. I got a free bag of shredded cheese, and they were buy one, they were like buy 2 for $5 or something, so I ended up getting 2 flavors of shredded cheese. I got some romaine lettuce. I got some white chocolate chips because also had a coupon for those. And I got some apples. These ones are Gala apples. My grandson loves apples. And I love apples, so I always make sure I have some. And then white potatoes. So that's it. That's my grocery haul. So it is the end of Mid-Month Book Bash. It is Monday evening, and I am wrapping this up. I have been very successful, and I have finished one more book. I finished To the Bright Edge of the World by Eowyn Ivey. This is historical fiction, and I love this. This is my first 5-star read of the year. I am so thrilled with how much I enjoyed this book. As I said earlier, it's an epistolary novel. It's told through letters between this army explorer guy, Forrester, and his wife, Sophie. He's up in Alaska exploring the Wolverine River, and she is back in the army barracks in Washington Territory. The year is 1895, and Forrester is exploring this previously unexplored part of Alaska, encountering native Alaskan indigenous folks and learning a lot about the world through his explorations, learning what's important and what isn't important, learning that perhaps that white Europeans don't know everything about the world. And Sophie is also learning about herself and about the world, trying to struggle through difficult times by herself and exert her independence and reach for the things that she wants. There's lots of nature writing in this book. It's absolutely stunningly beautifully written, I think. The descriptions of the scenery and the animals that are encountered are wonderful. The characters jump off the page. It is a slow book. This is not a fast-paced, plot-driven book at all. It's a character book and a like a descriptive book, I would say, but the slow pace matches what the world was like at the time with the rate of communications and how communications happened in letter writing. Back and forth would take months, sometimes even longer than that. And the pace of this book really sort of matches the pace of what communications were like at the time. I just think this is a wonderful book. If you like sort of books about exploring new regions, if you like books that weave in indigenous mythology, if you like epistolary novels, all of these things, I think you should give this a try. I really, really enjoyed my time with it. And I'm glad that I finally got to this one that's been lingering on my TBR shelves for far too long. So I completed 3 books this mid-month book bash weekend, which is fantastic. And I also read in each of the other books that I was currently reading at the start of the weekend. So I made progress in everything. I think that is a huge success. I will turn this camera around and show you my spread for the weekend so you can see how well I did. Okay, here's my mid-month book bash spread. And you can see this is the chart where I've been tracking what I've been reading. I read a total of 726 pages over the weekend. I completed 3 books, and I did some reading in each and every one of the titles that I was currently reading when I started. I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better reading weekend than that. I am thrilled with my progress. So I hope everybody else got a lot of reading done this weekend, and I will talk to you soon.